Okay, DXA Chapter 4, Frax. The use of Frax has been helpful to further predict fracture risk in patients who are in the osteopenic range. There are several additional risk factors on top of bone density measurement that can predict a patient's risk for fracture. And Frax was developed to help weed out those individuals in the osteopenic range who may have an increased risk of fracture and benefit from therapy, even though they're not in the WHO osteoporotic range of bone density. On the website, you can choose the location where your patient lives, and then you can choose their race. And the Frax database includes different data depending on race and ethnicity. So once you do that, at one of our sites we don't have Frax on our machine, and so the technologists actually go to this website, enter in the data, and do a printout so that we can report a Frax score on the patient. So patients have their age entered, their gender, and then weight and height in metric system. If you're using pounds and inches, you can enter them into the converter on the right side of the screen and it will convert it to metric. And then there's questions that are specifically related to risks for osteoporotic fracture, and our questionnaire keys these different items so that the technologist knows whether or not to check yes or no. In this particular case, we have a patient who has a previous hip fracture and is a current smoker. T-score has been entered, and when I calculate, this is what we get. So previously I had US Black. Now I have US Caucasian, and you'll notice how the numbers changed. These numbers are critical. Even though the patient is in an osteopenic range of minus 2.1 for the femoral neck, and this is only the femoral neck that's entered here, she has a major osteoporotic risk fracture of 24%. Anything over 20 is considered high risk. And even though she's in the low bone mass instead of the WHO osteoporotic range, this number places her at high risk, and she would benefit from therapy. Additionally, her hip fracture risk is 11%. Anything over 3% is critical. So that's how Frax can help. And another way or another thing to be cautious of when you're looking at Frax is to make sure that the data is entered correctly. Noticed when I changed from US Black to US Caucasian, these numbers dramatically changed because ethnicity affects risk for fracture. I'm going to also uncheck previous risk fracture and uncheck current smoker and recalculate, and you'll notice that the Frax numbers go down. Her hip fracture risk is still high at 5.3, and she would benefit from therapy, but her major osteoporotic fracture risk is 16%. It's less than 20%. So major osteoporotic fracture risks includes hip, spine, proximal humerus, and forearm, as in a fall on the outstretched hand.